expressed it in her breast milk. He brought it back to Europe and cultivated it. So he had to look for it because so many modern people have lost this microbe. Well, the funny thing about Rotari is if you went to indigenous people, like the Yanomami in the Brazilian rainforest, or the Matsas in the highlands of Peru, or the Malawi on eastern Africa, or the Hadza in Tanzania, or the Maasai in Kenya, primitive population, indigenous populations who don't take antibiotics, right? They don't take statin drugs. They don't take non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. They're not exposed to glyphosate, at least not in substantial quantities. In other words, not exposed to the microbiome disruptions that we are. They all have it. They all have Lactobacillus ruteri. If you were to characterize the microbiome of your neighborhood raccoon, or hamster, or a chipmunk, or squirrel, other mammals have Rotari, but you don't, or most of you don't. So what happened? What happened that now only 1 in 20 people retains Rotari? Well, let's talk about what happens when you restore it. What happens when you restore at least the 96% or so of people who lack Rotari? Well, a lot of these effects have been backtracked to the hormone oxytocin. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about oxytocin as being the hormone of love and empathy, right? Here is an animal study. This is one of the animal studies that got me kind of really paying attention to this. These are animals given Rotari and the boost in oxytocin. On the left, little black bar, animals not given Rotari. On the right, animals given Rotari. And you can see there's over a 300% increase in oxytocin. Interestingly, in the B graph, that's plasma corticosterone, which is the same as cortisol in humans. Look at the reduction in cortisol. Cortisol is the hormone of stress. So there's potentially a dramatic reduction in stress effects. And even more interestingly, I wasn't going to talk about this, but it's so interesting. The thymus gland sits right here, and it's the gland of T-cell immunity. So when you were 15, your thymus gland was at its maximal size and T-cell production capacity. After age 15, it starts to shrink. By age 70, it's about 10% of its former size and much less capable of launching a T-cell response to flu virus, COVID-19, pneumococcal bacteria, etc. So it explains why the thymic atrophy or thymic involution explains why there's people are more likely to die, say, of flu or pneumococcal pneumonia at age 75 than at age 15. Or why there's more cancer, because there's less immune surveillance. Giving someone Rotari, at least in animal models, and thereby boosting oxytocin, reverses thymic atrophy. So it's one of the studies on our docket to get done over the years to see if that holds true in humans, but I think it does. So how does it work? So you restore Rotari to your GI tract. It colonizes, remember, the entire length of the GI tract, not just the colon. It colonizes stomach, duodenum, jejunum, ileum, takes up residence, sends a signal backward, retrograde, through the vagus nerve, to the pituitary and hypothalamus to release oxytocin. So it's kind of a convoluted mechanism. But here's an example of accelerated healing. Now, this is a mouse. You inflict a wound. These are all 5 days later after the wound. If they don't get Rotari, they still have a wide open wound. If they get Rotari, the wound is healed in 5 days. So healing is accelerated. Now skin healing is skin healing, but skin healing can also be viewed as an indirect gauge of youthful response. So if you restore the youthful capacity to heal, you may have restored some aspects of you. Who heals faster, a 5-year-old or a 70-year-old? A 5-year-old, right? And part of the reason is oxytocin. So you can turn that. Now, this was done in humans also. It wasn't quite as vigorous. So in mice, healing time is cut by 50%. Healing time is cut by 50%. In humans, it's more like 35%. But that's 35% abbreviation of healing time, which is still quite substantial. This is the deposition of collagen in the dermis. You know, the dermis is right beneath the epidermis. Dermis is, ladies go berserk for dermal collagen, right? They'll take collagen hydrolysates and hyaluronic acid. Also, they can have thicker dermal collagen. Look at the graph. Black control, white Rotari. The difference in collagen deposition within days of getting Rotari. There's an explosion of collagen in the dermis. Now, I'd like to know, one of our studies is